All right. Today is what is it?
21st of September.
21st of
2012.
September, 2012, and the Phoenix Police Department has been very kind and helpful in helping me do an interview for the organization A.O.U. Today we're going to be doing an informational piece with the Phoenix Police Department to better understand their role in the community. I have Mr. Holmes here. He's the public information officer for Phoenix Police Department, and we're going to get this interview on the way.
Okay.
All right. Thanks
And
for doing the
officially,
interview.
it's Officer James Holmes, Holmes.
Okay.
Phoenix Police Media Relations.
Okay, you want to give me badge number 2?
No, we don't.
Okay, joke.
Just in case somebody starts looking for me.
Yeah. All right. Today we're going to do a Q&A again with him. And the first question for you, Mr. Holmes, is what are the purposes for the police department within the Phoenix area in Maricopa?
Well, initially, as is with most law enforcement agencies, it's to protect and serve. That's what we do. We have guidelines that we use. Phoenix Police Chief Daniel V. Garcia likes to use his philosophy in policing, and he calls that policing with a purpose. And basically what that means in general terms is that our goal is to treat everybody fairly, to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And this is initially in contact with the police, regardless of what that person's status might be going forward with that contact. So the biggest two things are treating people with dignity and respect and treating people fairly.
Yes, that's a good model. Is that a new police chief from your last?
Chief Garcia is new here to Phoenix. He just came into the Valley in May. And since that, he has his philosophies for law enforcement are obviously similar to any chief that we may have had in the past. In the context that we protect and serve. Yes. However, he is key on the way that Phoenix police officers treat our citizens when we have contact with them. That is his key. Community service is where he lives, and it's where the Phoenix Police Department lives.
Oh, that's good. It's good info. Good to know. Okay, the next question is, what type of police personnel and qualities does the Phoenix department look for in potential police officers?
What we look for is dedicated young men and women who want to dedicate themselves to a career in law enforcement. We look for young men and women who have done things in their lives prior to applying to be a police officer, that being education, higher education, community service. Obviously, they're law-abiding citizens. Yes. They've not broken the law to the extent that it would be detrimental to their service to the public. But basically, it's just dedicated individuals that really want to get out there and serve the community.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, the next question is, what does it take to be a police personnel within the Phoenix Police Department? I think that question was just answered.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Pretty much the same thing.
You really need to have a desire. One thing I like to say is you can't be a cop for the money. You really need to have a desire to get out there and work with our citizens and work with the community. And not only that, but to better yourself. Yes. Educationally, physically, and psychologically as you go along in your career.
Good answer. Okay. Next question. What code and standards does the Maricopa Phoenix Police Department adhere to or implement to uphold? Like, where do y'all get y'all policies and procedures from?
Well, our policies and procedures come from the Arizona Police Officer Standard and Training. The acronym is AZ Post, and they are the entity here in Arizona that gives us our guidelines for successful policing. Their basic standards are in training police officers and the standard of training for those police officers, so that we're all working, regardless of the law enforcement agency in Arizona, we're all working at the same level. We're all receiving the same training. And though different department policies and how they operate may change or may vary as you move about the state and talk to law enforcement, our policies and our standards, our guidelines, if you will, come from AZ Post.
Okay, that's good. Where do they get their abilities to implement the policies and procedures? Is it something done in Congress or on that level?
AZ Post is state mandate. That
Okay.
means the governor's office.
Okay. Okay. So if anybody had any issue with a policy or procedure, and if they wanted to give their opinion on something, they would write their inquiries to the governor's office.
Correct. But basically, what they would do is send their inquiries to AZ Post
Okay.
themselves. They are an open entity.
Okay.
And very informative about law enforcement in the state of Arizona. We would only ask that if there's a policy or procedure that may be in question, or that you might want more information
Yes.
on, then they may start with their local police department.
Okay. Chain of command.
And then go from there.
Okay.
Simply because most of those questions could probably be answered at the local law enforcement
Okay.
level. However, if the answer is not satisfactory or there's not a clarity, then certainly going to AZ Post would be another avenue of approach.
Okay, so the first step is always the local police department.
It should be.
Okay,
It should be.
gotcha. Okay, next question. What is the Maricopa Department outlook on the marginalized community in whole?
Okay, marginalized
In
meaning
the urban community, lower income community, that type of community.
I understand, and I think what you're looking for is perhaps some type of an outreach into the marginalized communities, meaning lower income, and I'll start that out by saying that our programs that we implement here for the city of Phoenix, including our community relations unit, which includes our community action officers in each precinct, are geared toward the entire city. Okay, first, but we do recognize that there are concerns from the marginalized communities, being lower income, Black, Hispanic, community,
Yes.
and our citizens that have their specialized groups, if you will. And so we address those concerns as they come to us. Sometimes you have to devise specific plans
Yes.
in policing for different communities within the jurisdiction. And we certainly do that. And we do that starting again with our community action officers that are assigned to each precinct, and then the community leaders within those precincts that may have a concern about policing. There's always questions from our citizens and from our communities within the city about our policing practices. And we need to be able to answer those, and we need to be able to address them. We have a community where there's a lot of burglaries. We have a community where there's a lot of drugs. We have communities or concerns that come out about juvenile activities, if you will. And we address those on a case-by-case basis. We do that through crime analysis and through community outreach. We sit down and we talk to those folks, and we ask them, what are your concerns? And we address them on a case-by-case basis, and we do that all the time, every day.
Okay, that's good. Is there any time like your local city hall has annual meetings? May they be weekly, monthly? Does the Phoenix Police Department does something like that or similar?
We
Or
don't,
like
but I will tell you
ordinance?
what, we do have programs within our precincts. And of course, speaking at the city hall and city council level, they have open forums. And
Yes.
of course, you could always go to phoenix.gov and find those. For us, we have programs like Coffee with a Cop, Dinner with a Cop.
Okay.
And in those programs, what we do is we invite citizens within those precincts and those communities to come out and sit down with us, have a cup of coffee, have breakfast, have some supper, and in that forum, tell us what your concerns are within your neighborhoods and what's going on. We do those all the time. And each precinct has its own website. It has its own community letter. If it needs to be done at a higher level, if you will, then we address those on a case-by-case basis. But the key to community involvement in law enforcement for our citizens is always to know who your community action officers are.
Yes.
Because they're well trained, they're well informed, and of course they're more than willing to address the issues.
Yeah, that's good. All you gotta do is take the first step.
You take the first step. You're going to find out very quickly, and we're proud of this. We're an open department. And when I say that we're an open department, what that means is that we are approachable to any concern that a citizen might have, and we'll address any concern that a citizen might have, because a single citizen's concern, we believe, is a concern of a lot of citizens who just have not come forward and let us know about it.
That's good. Again, dinner with a cop, coffee with a cop. I didn't even know about those programs.
These are great programs,
Very.
and our citizens enjoy them.
Yeah.
We also have we have block watch programs. We have Phoenix Neighborhood Patrol programs where our citizens actually get involved in their neighborhoods um, in the policing activity. Anything from calling in suspicious vehicles to having meetings and talking about concerns for that neighborhood or for that area. And these are crime solving and crime prevention entities that we're very proud of here.
Yes.
Because our citizens own them when they become a part of those programs. And they work hard to work with us to keep their neighborhoods safe, clear of graffiti and things of that nature. So,
Yes, good programs. I'm sure the individuals who don't know about those programs, whatever number it may be, this might be very beneficial to them.
right, and we have to remember too, when we conclude this through via email, I will send you some very good community resource phone numbers for us, where those who are interested and a part of your organization, they'll have a telephone number to call to ask questions, and of course they can always call me.
Absolutely, you've been very open and helpful too, Phoenix Police Department. I'll be sure to put that on my website too.
Please, and we have our own website. I will make sure you have all of that.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next question, what can the marginalized community and the Maricopa Phoenix Police Department do to better their relationship? Because some of the aspects, whether this might be individuals who are not too comfortable with law enforcement because certain things happen, and it's just like a bad relationship in the sense of lack of communication rather than anything else. What can they do to better their relationship with the Phoenix Police Department?
And those things that we've already talked about are a huge part of that, but we understand that there is, and unfortunately for the entire community and law enforcement, there will be some dissension amongst our citizens. There are myths, there's upbringing, there's a lot of things that contribute to the distrust of law enforcement. And yet it's hard to fix that from the outside looking in.
Yes.
We have to encourage our citizens to have contact with us. Talk to us about things that are going on. If they have a concern, if they think that they're being treated unfairly for any reason, if they think that they're not getting the attention from law enforcement that they probably should, then they're going to have to talk to us.
Yes.
Parents often say to their children, "We're not mind readers." Okay, and of course we're not talking about parent-children, but law enforcement are not mind readers either. We understand when we approach citizens who have a distrust of us, we understand, and a lot of times we can see it right away, early in the conversation. And our job as law enforcement, as public servants, is to do everything that we can to dispel that. But we also understand where that might come from, the arrest of relatives, the arrest of the citizen, and then all of those things that go along with that, the conversations within the community. We understand all of that, and all we ask is, instead of listening to a person who might themselves not have a great trust or may have a dislike for law enforcement, come talk to us. You see an officer patrolling out in your area, it doesn't hurt to get that officer's attention, and ask some questions if you have them. We encourage our officers to be out in the community. We encourage them to be familiar with their beat, if you will. That's the area they patrol. Be familiar with the citizens that are within that beat. Obviously, be familiar with crime trends and things like that. But not only that, but when a citizen has a question, to stop and talk to that citizen, and let them tell you about what's going on, and then encourage them that we're going to do our best to address those issues within that citizen's neighborhood or community.
Yes, very good answer, and it's truthful too.
It is
all you
very
gotta
truthful.
do is make the effort to communicate, and it'll be very responsive.
We have to do it both ways.
Both ways too.
We have our community action officers, and they have their programs, and they have their issues that they address, but it always has to start out on the street. It has to start with the officers out on the street, and it has to start with the citizens that have a concern that they need to address.
Yes.
And a lot of times when they see that officer out there and they need a minute of that officer's time, so long as he's not running to an armed robbery or some serious traffic accident, stop and ask them a question when the opportunity is there if you have a concern. Or just say hello, and let the conversation begin, because great things happen from hello.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Don't stop a cop when they're pursuing a criminal or something, somebody in a robbery or something,
Sure.
and don't get mad at that. Next question. What, if any, community programs does the Phoenix Police Department in Maricopa do for the marginalized community? I think we already went into
We've
that.
discussed that, and
Yeah,
again,
so
it always starts with the community action officer. Um, but the websites, the
mhm.
phoenix.gov and phoenix.gov/police is just a great place for people to start to see. Our programs are all listed there. The city's programs are all listed there. And if there's something that the citizen wants to do on their
Incorporate.
own,
Yeah.
create a forum or something like that, the community action officers is where you always start. Um, and that's how we get the issues addressed. That's how we know what our citizens' concerns are. And these are not always bad things.
Mhm.
We have schools that reach out to us all the time for programs that they're doing that they'd like to have an officer come out
Yes.
and participate in. Organizations, charitable organizations. There's so many things that we're willing to do that sometimes people um, don't know or don't understand, or for
Yes.
whatever reason don't recognize that we do a lot more than write police reports and put people in jail, and we're
Yes.
trying so hard to dispel that within the communities where communication and trust is not prevalent between the citizens and law enforcement, and so and we encourage things like this in your organization, especially an organization that addresses youth and the things that they're doing in their young lives to be successful. We encourage you, come see us, talk to us, talk to the community action officers, talk to our community relations bureau, and see where we both can get involved
Yes.
to keep a healthy relationship going here in the city of Phoenix.
Yes, because what our program does, we want the youth to start out young, like being able to communicate with all forms of law, public officials, and
Sure.
build up that comfortable relationship with them. Because we don't want the youth to grow up and have spitefulness. Just because
Sure.
a conversation wasn't implemented and could have resolved all of that. So communication is a good piece.
It's it's clear that one thing that I would love to see um, in a community where I am charged with public service is the trust in the law enforcement being at least almost the same as in the citizens' faith-based community. And uh, when you go to church, you have communication and you have trust and you have openness. We want the same thing here. Understanding that there is a barrier, and that is that we do arrest people and we do put people in jail, and we have to deal with the bad as well as the good. I truly believe that within the city of Phoenix and the Phoenix Police Department, um, there are a great many good things happening within our community with law enforcement and with our community members. The issue is that there's a lot of people who don't know or not
Yes.
seeking to be a part of those great things that we have going on.
Yes.
And it's important.
I would agree with that. Another question dealing with those programs you said not many people are aware of. What would a person in the community take the same steps to have a new program implemented with the Phoenix Police Department, like created on the books? How would that go about?
Like
To have a new program, give y'all the Phoenix Police Department an idea, a pretty good idea for y'all to implement on y'all policy.
absolutely, yeah. And again, we encourage that, and that's why we have breakfast with a cop
Yes.
and dinner with a cop, and we have our community action officers and our school resource officers, which I have not mentioned, but do a very good job with us with our youth.
Okay.
Um, we're open to any suggestion, and when I say that we're an open department, I absolutely meant that. We're open to any suggestion that would be for the good of the community, not individual,
Yes.
but for the good of the community. And we think that sometimes there's folks out there who have really, really good ideas, and the barriers are number one, they don't know how to get those ideas to us, and number two, there is that distrust, or they won't do anything about
Yes.
it, or they won't listen to me. But we will listen. We absolutely will listen because we find out all the time that there are citizens out there that have very good ideas, not so much for policy changes,
Yes. Yes.
but for the implementation and the openness of the policies that we do have and the programs that we do have. And so we encourage that.
Yes. I will say this is for the viewers that this conversation is being implemented because I just called Phoenix Police Department. That's it. I didn't know Mr. Holmes prior to this.
Correct.
We're not church members or anything like this, and it's been like a week and it happened pretty quick. So
There was an email sent out and it was sent to me, and it came to the right person.
Mhm.
And of course, there's several of us,
Yes.
but it came to the right person. And again, based on the conversation that we're having right now, I cannot emphasize enough how much we need the community to reach out to us,
Yes.
as much as we try to reach out to them
Yes.
based on the information that we know is going on in certain neighborhoods and certain areas. And sometimes all it takes is a phone call or an email.
Absolutely. Email or phone call. All right, our next question is the Maricopa Phoenix Police Department open to discussion with marginalized communities? We already answered that, so we're going to skip that one. The next question is the Maricopa Department open to community to empower day or events like doing a Phoenix Police Department and marginalized community day out in the community, like at a park or something? Nothing. Nobody's trying to be a cop that days. You can dress up in uniform, but it's just like handing out hot dogs. How you doing?
Sure.
It's would the Phoenix Police Department be open to something like that?
And you know what? And we would. As a matter of fact, we do it.
Okay.
We do it in communities, and we're asked to do it all the time.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily, we don't go for security.
Mhm. Yes.
We don't go for
Yes.
police presence. We go because that particular community not only recognizes that we're making every effort that we can to be a part of them, but at the same time, there's times when they just want to reward us for the communication and the openness that we've had. And they invite us to come out and have a Coke and a hot dog and just be there with them. And as much as that may not be official, you can bet it's official to us because it gives us a chance then to network out there with our citizens and with the kids or whatever, whoever's attending the event that they ask about. As so long as that is a community-minded event, and that event is based on the empowerment of that community, then when we have the opportunity, we will participate and we'll do what we can to make that event a success.
Okay. And I would agree if you, because there are some really good cops. I've met one or two myself,
Sure.
and that is good to, call the police department and say, hey, can Officer Billy come by, and hand him a donut or
Sure.
or a cup of coffee or something, a Starbucks gift card or something for, their implementation within the community.
Now, what we don't want, when I say reward, we do, of course,
nothing for national gifts.
We don't want them, giving us gift cards and things like that.
Okay.
But we'll certainly share a hot dog with them and a conversation.
Okay.
Those are the kind of things that are important to us, because inevitably, whenever we go out into the public and we participate in events with our citizens, new information is always shared with us. New concerns are always shared with us. And we also find out about really good things that are happening in the communities between our officers and the citizens. And so, absolutely, we participate in events.
Okay, that's good to hear. The next question, okay, turn the page. Are there normal shift police personnel within the marginalized community within Phoenix, Arizona? In the lower end communities that are normal police officers continuously there, and what do they do to interact with the people in that community?
And we've kind of touched that already.
Yeah.
Our officers, patrol officers, are assigned to precincts. They're assigned to squads. Those squads then assign the officers to beats. And in most cases in the city, those same officers work those same beats day in and day out. And of course, we do shifts. There's 24-hour officers out there, but we do shifts. We do 10-hour shifts within that same beat, within that same community. And so, if you live in a neighborhood for any given period of time, you should start to recognize those officers that are patrolling in your area, especially if you have contact with them. But beat accountability and responsibility is what we call it.
Okay.
And again, we encourage our officers to get out there and talk to our citizens on a casual basis instead of the citizen had to call 911 because there's a fight somewhere, and now we're doing a police investigation. We would rather And again, this is based on the time that the officers have because they do have
Yes.
responsibility to answer the radio and respond to calls. But we encourage our officers to go out there and talk to our citizens, and vice versa. You know, if you have an officer in your beat and you want to meet them, and they're driving around your neighborhood or whatever, give them a wave, stop the car, you know, and talk to them. You know, as long as they're not busy working and answering the radio, they'll talk to you.
Yes.
It's important, and generally it's the same officer,
Mm-hmm.
so that you get to know Officer Bob or Officer Jim or or what have you. And again, it's so important because it is at ground level.
Yes.
That is at ground level that we start to get information from our citizens and information about the concerns that they have for their neighborhoods.
Yes, and I do recommend anyone who has a continuous beat patrol officer to get to know them. You know, conversation, your name. You know, just to get to know them. You know, because something might happen, and and it because they know you. You know, it could change the whole events of what could have happened. You know.
It really can. When you got an open line of communication, um, then neighborhood safety, neighborhood comfort, if you will.
Yes.
It starts to go two ways because you know your officer now. You know who works out there with you, and our officers know our citizens. When things do happen, the citizen is less reluctant to come and talk to the officer about what's going on, and at the same time, the officer is encouraged then to go up and talk to that citizen and say, you got a bicycle sitting out here, it's unsecured, you might want to put it
Yes.
inside. Little things like that
Makes a big difference.
it makes a huge difference when you're talking about keeping neighborhoods safe and making people feel secure in their homes.
And at Phoenix, Arizona is a big bicycle stealing place.
Unfortunately.
Oh, I had over $2,000 in bikes stolen.
Sure.
It's ridiculous out here. So yeah, that's another good reason to have a good relationship with the beat patrol officer. Hey, lock up your bike, and knock on the door.
Little things. We're empowered by the conversations that we have with you when it comes to non-emergency police contact. We're empowered when you're willing to stop and talk to us, talk about things that are going on. That encourages us that this is a citizen. When there is something happening or something that we really want to address with them, this is one citizen that we can go to that we know will listen. Someone that we've built a rapport with. We want that rapport with 1.5 million.
Yes.
Okay, and that is the ultimate goal, to be able to talk with our citizens and have our citizens come in an open manner and talk to us. And it doesn't have to be about crime.
Absolutely. Get to know your police department. Next question. Are there alternative programs in the Phoenix Maricopa Police Department that pushes or attempts to push within the marginalized communities to redirect behavioral youth?
There are. We have within the school system, again,
Okay.
I mentioned the school resource officers, and that's kind of where it starts. But we have programs that are geared toward youth. We have summer programs that are out there that are geared toward youth. We sponsor some schools that actually take the youth toward a law enforcement career.
Yes.
We have the Police Explorer program, which Phoenix has one of the best. I'll say in the country, but certainly in the state of Arizona, where we prepare youth not necessarily for a law enforcement career, but we certainly prepare them to be good citizens as they grow, and that starts at 13 years old.
Yeah.
So we do have programs, and all of them are on our website.
And that would be a good platform to, if you're in your 20s and you did this program when you were in high school, to fall back on, because you ahead of the game.
Absolutely. This is what. Let's start with colleges. Okay, when you apply to a college, it's not automatic.
Yes.
That you get to go. What you've done in your high school years is important, and even your junior high school years. They look for things like group involvement, like the Explorers and other programs that are out there in the communities that are even offered through the YMCA and other programs like that. They look for that. They look for community service. They look for volunteering, the things that you've done as you prepared yourself to become an adult out within your community.
Yes.
They look for that. They look for involvement in organizations like yours that's geared toward making them better human beings, not necessarily any one direction for a career or what have
Yes.
you, just being good people. That's what colleges look for. And then, as you get older, employers look for the exact same thing. What have you done in your life to make you successful so that I can take that success and make it a great part of my business? That's what they look for. It's very hard sometimes, especially in marginal communities, if you will, to get children to understand at the age of 12 and 13
Yes.
um, that this is the direction that you need to take. And of course, environment, and that there's just so many things that are pounding. It's hard to be a 13-year-old.
Yes.
I remember telling my own children that because you're pounded with everything that is good and bad. And sometimes the wrong direction is easier to take than the right direction. But when we have folks like your organization, we have folks like the YMCA and a lot of the youth programs that are out there, and I want to be able to say proudly, and law enforcement, to help these kids along, then by the time they get to that age where now it's time for them to start a career, they've followed good examples instead of bad examples, and they become successful.
Yes. Great information, great answer. Okay, the next question. Um, who are the police personnel in Phoenix, Maricopa area department to discuss community issues or for questions and answers? I believe we already touched on that.
We have, and of
Yes,
course,
sir.
you got the folks here at the Public Affairs Bureau, but even more so, and I will emphasize it over and over and over again. Your community action officers at your precincts are your best resource
Yes.
for information and for events.
Good. Good. So I will start with the police action officer.
Community action officers.
Community action officer. Okay. The next question, and I had two more questions. Are there training programs implemented by the Phoenix Maricopa Department um, to train police officers with discussion techniques? You know, approaching a situation where something happened to an individual and they're hysterical, or there are techniques to calm that individual or to understand.
We have that, and we address everything from critical incidents involving the mentally ill, all the way down to domestic violence, where you have people who are hysterical, people who are not rational, if you will, at onset of the contact. And we are trained on that, and we have in-service training annually, and those things are discussed. And one thing that law enforcement loves to use, and especially Phoenix Police Department, is the ability to diffuse a situation. We're trained on it, even in briefings. We talk about it. The idea is that whatever brought us to that situation, and I hope I'm actually addressing the issue, whatever brought us to that situation, it becomes our responsibility upon arrival to keep people safe, to calm down the issue, and then to address whatever it was that caused that to happen in the first place. We're trained on it. It's emphasized. Our supervisors, certainly, and our managers emphasize diffusing situations, and it's a key to any successful police investigation.
Yes. And I would take this into the community beat officer. If an officer knows you in the community and say they know you really liked and loved your dog and your dog died for some reason,
Sure.
and you're outside crying hysterically, the officer could come with an approach like, okay, Bob, he loves his dog.
Absolutely.
He's not, in a sense, mentally ill, but he's emotionally ill,
Right.
and he could address it from that standpoint. So that
how much easier, and you set such a good example of that, how much easier would it be for an officer to walk into even a potentially violent situation, and the officer knows the citizen that's involved because they've had contact, and the citizen knows the officer that's involved because they've had contact, and there may not be brotherly love type thing between them, but there might be trust between the two of them. How much easier would it be for all of us to work on diffusing that situation and then coming to a comprehensive um, uh, and successful conclusion to that situation instead of it getting out of hand to where now we have a situation where people may get hurt or we have to make arrests that may have been unnecessary. had we known
Yes.
each other.
Yes.
It's important.
Yes, that's absolutely true. A last question. What is the reason that the Phoenix Maricopa Department implemented a special mental I don't know if I'm saying it absolutely correct, the mental disorder department, because I know y'all have like specialized officers. I'm saying this because my background in the behavioral field
Sure.
that deals with individuals with Down syndrome or special needs cases. You understand what I'm
I
saying?
understand because I took the 40-hour course.
Okay.
I am what they call a CIT, which means I've had criticalness and training. A lot of our officers have, and we actually have certified instructors that teach it. In the United States of America, we have we've not quite been up to par on treating the mentally ill. And as little as 5, 10 years ago in law enforcement, we finally started to recognize that we needed specialized training in dealing with persons with mental handicaps. Because as obvious as it was and as obvious as it is, we can't approach a person that has a mental disability the same as we would approach a person who's not been diagnosed or doesn't have those same issues. And it does take special care. And we have mandatory training for our law enforcement officers in dealing with that. And basically, the concepts are still the same. Treat people fairly and treat them with dignity based on who they are. And when it comes to the mentally ill, we have to understand that there is no blanket approach to the mentally ill. You can't do that. And so we've had that training. And again, I took the training and it opened my eyes to dealing with the mentally ill because, let's face it, we have a legal responsibility for transporting mentally handicapped persons. We have for contacting them and ensuring for their safety and their health and well-being as well as everyone else. And it takes a little bit more. And the biggest thing is patience and recognizing immediately that the situation you have deserves a different type of police officer than it would with a citizen that does not have those same handicaps. And so it's important. I'm very glad that you asked that question because I like to boast, if you will, about the approach that the Phoenix Police Department takes to the mentally ill and the mentally handicapped. And I hope that what I'm saying is politically correct. Everything kind of changes when you start talking about things like that. But again, it's with great pride to know that we've got certified instructors. We have people who dedicated themselves to educating the rest of us on dealing with the mentally ill and the mentally handicapped. And because of that, understanding that we are trying to develop in law enforcement and dealing with the mentally ill, we're more confident in our approach. We're more confident that there will be less physical injury, either to officers or to the person that we're dealing with. And again, a lot more understanding. And also because of that, we have built a relationship with the mental health community. Okay, and they now have a trust that not only will we respond to them in their dealings with their clients, but it's going to be a safer environment all around. And they also respond faster to us.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important.
And it goes back to the beat officer. If you have a mentally challenged individual in the household who's behavioral or, have behaviorals, throughout the year sometimes.
Sure.
It's good to inform the beat officer to that so when something does happen, they know, okay, I might not be the specialized trained officer in this, but I'll call dispatch and inform them to send somebody over who can handle the situation.
And the best thing about that, again, is that the basic training that we have is mandatory for all. For all officers. Okay. And we understand that, especially when someone else calls about the behavior of a mentally handicapped person, what that person tells us is incredibly, incredibly important once we get there. But we also have to recognize that there is an emotional concept also to the person who might be telling us what's going on with that mentally disabled person. And so we have to take all of these things into consideration, and we have to do it very quickly.
Absolutely.
And that is the reason for the training, for the constant reminders from our supervisors and our management on how to deal with these type situations. But across the country, I think that this training is saving lives.
Absolutely.
I think that this training is keeping individuals from being injured. Again, not only the client, but the officer. And at the same time, uh, those clients are realizing that we're behaving differently when it comes to our approach to them. And so there we have it again, a type of trust or understanding between law enforcement and the community. And with the mentally disabled community, um, it's just so important that law enforcement understands that these behaviors, when we're called, these behaviors have somehow gotten out of control or have become dangerous or what have you. And yet at the same time, we must approach with dignity, we must approach with respect, and we must approach with fairness, even to their situations.
Yes, great answers, and that'll be the end of our Q&A. But I would like to say, working with the Phoenix Police Department, since I've been in contact with them, has been really good. They have been very receptive to what our organization does and quick to react. So I would like to thank, on behalf of Mr. Holmes, I would like to thank the Phoenix Police Department for doing this interview with the A.O.U. and appreciate that. And if anybody needs any information, Mr. Holmes is going to send me some email information. I'm going to put it on the website, and you could always call your local police department direct. Especially Phoenix Police Department, to get information. So
and visit the website. Again,
yes.
I will send that, not only Phoenix Police, but the city website. Visit those websites. Take a look, navigate through them. See what they have to offer that pertains to you and whatever particular issue that you might have. Or just go and take a look just to see what's there.
Yes.
It's really important. It's an open line of communication sitting right there in front of you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then when you have questions, we'll direct you where you need to go. Community action officers, community relations bureau, school resource officers, but not only in law enforcement, but entities that work with us
abroad,
outside of the organization. It's really important. But I have to tell you, Fabian, I appreciate the fact that you took the time for your organization to make the inquiry, to come and sit down with me for a while, and give me the opportunity to ensure our citizens, especially our young citizens, police are people too.
Yes.
We have families, we have relationships. We like to go out and bowl and do things and have the same thing that our citizens like to do. And we don't want that thought and that attitude to change when we put the badge and the suit on and go out and work amongst our citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's in the community abroad, the police department is willing to work. When the community is willing to work and the police department is willing to work, you have a much better community and a safer community abroad. So let's get that done. And that'll wrap it up for this interview. Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Same.